Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining today's innovation talk on turning eMobility into a competitive advantage. Today, we're going to discuss the challenges around fleet electrification and new EV charging solutions for commercial applications. So here at Schneider Electric, we believe that the path to net zero is when digital meets electric. But with electrification being such a key component and also growing at such a rapid pace, sometimes this transition can be difficult to navigate. And that's why we're here today to discuss the EV technology and solutions to address this challenge. My name is Iris. I'm the eMobility launch leader moderating today's discussion. And today we have our guest, Mimi Gupta from AutoGrid. Mimi, thanks so much for being here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and AutoGrid.
Sure. Hi, I'm Mimi Gupta. I'm the head of eMobility at AutoGrid, the world's leading virtual power plant provider. So I'll just wait for a second.
Oh, wait, a bit.
So what's a virtual power plant? A virtual power plant is essentially an aggregation of distributed energy resources, whether that's thermostats or storage or EVs, that can be optimized and dispatched like a peaker power plant to provide capacity or ancillary services to the grid. And in the context of EVs, AutoGrid uses artificial intelligence to manage the charging of EVs to both reduce the costs of charging, but also open up new revenue streams by participating in grid services.
Thanks, Mimi. And we're so grateful to be working with AutoGrid on this shared mission to deliver optimized and flexible energy management solutions. So the main challenge that our commercial customers are facing is that they need to electrify their operations, which means that they need to install EV charging stations and electrify their fleets. But sometimes they're not aware of their options or the processes that they can take to access reliable and affordable energy sources outside of your traditional power grid. And it's also not as easy as assuming that the grid can provide accessible and affordable energy whenever they need it. So, Mimi, with your customers, what challenges do you see them facing when it comes to fleet electrification?
Yeah, so I would say I see two main challenges. One is when you're looking to electrify your fleet, you need to make sure that your site can provide enough energy to charge your fleet and capacity. And a lot of times, customers are going to utilities and saying, I need X number of megawatts of capacity to charge my fleet. And the utility is saying, I can't provide you this. Or they're saying, okay, but I'm going to have to make a bunch of upgrades. It's going to be very costly and it's going to take a long time. So managing the capacity of that site is a huge problem. The second problem is transitioning your EV fleet or to an EV fleet is a costly proposition. So I see EV fleet owners looking for any and all opportunities to mitigate those costs or add new revenue streams to offset those costs. And that can be through either smart charging or virtual power plant participation. So before we go into detail on the solutions on some of those problems, can you talk a little bit more, Iris, about why you think people are transitioning to EVs and the benefits they expect to get?
Yeah, so the benefits of fleet electrification and EV charging go far beyond just using a decarbonized source for transportation or meeting ESG goals or just supporting your community with access to public charging. So the first benefit is reduced costs through lower fuel costs because electricity can be more efficient than fossil fuels and also less volatile in pricing. And then you have government incentives to help accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles, and then also reduce maintenance costs because electric vehicles have less spare parts than internal combustion engine vehicles. The second benefit that Schneider Electric is seeing is a combination of operation resiliency and grid interconnectivity through bidirectional charging. So here at Schneider Electric, we have projects with vehicles with bidirectional capabilities to help meet the needs of our customers in the event of a power outage, and then we can use these vehicles as backup energy. And so with this bidirectional capabilities, this now provides the benefit of grid flexibility. So Mimi, with your commercial and municipal customers, how can they maximize these benefits, and what tools and solutions do they have to get there?
Yeah. So I think the first step is managing your EV charging load. And we see a lot of excitement there around microgrid solutions, deploying solar and storage to help mitigate demand charges, deploying optimization solutions to make sure that you're charging at the right times and discharging at the right times. Also, the storage solutions add resiliency. So making sure that your optimization of your microgrid is taking into account the pre-charging during an expected outage. And when that outage occurs, you now have a way to make sure that your site and your EV fleet can continue to operate undisturbed. But it doesn't stop there. Once you start accruing all of these resources like storage, like EVs, it opens up all of these monetization opportunities where you can sell energy back into the grid, either through utilities or wholesale electricity markets. And that can be a simple use case like curtailing your EV load in response to a demand response event, or more advanced use cases like vehicle to grid. Now, to make vehicle to grid a reality, what you need is an ability to forecast what is the needs of your fleet, forecast what are the needs of the grid, and match those two to ensure that you're delivering EV flexibility at the time that it's needed without disturbing your fleet operations. And this is where I get really excited to be part of the Schneider family, because Schneider has brought together this whole suite of companies that can provide our eMobility customers with an end-to-end solution that provides installation, hardware, software, and virtual power plants to help our customers make this journey as easy as possible and extract the most value out of the resources that they're deploying.
Thanks for going over that, Mimi. So now let's look at the other part of infrastructure challenges, and that's financing and funding, but also considering the current state of our existing infrastructure. So there's no denying that the transition to electric vehicles is a huge undertaking that's going to take a significant investment to transition to electric vehicles. But there are some key things that we need to consider when looking at our current infrastructure. And so the first key thing is that the power grid needs to handle the increased loads created by electric vehicles, especially in areas where the adoption of electric vehicles is accelerated. This increase in demand of electricity will place a huge load and strain on the grids in that area. The second point is that we need to update building codes in order to accommodate EVs. Right now, a lot of buildings do not have the adequate infrastructure to enable EV charging. And then the third key point is that there are government policies and federal programs in place to help with the investment and funding of these infrastructure and building code upgrades. So that's why here at Schneider Electric, we offer a service called Evaluate, capital EV-Aluate, if you guys get it. And it's an EV charging design and a capacity analysis for our customers that are looking to start their fleet electrification journey. And this includes understanding whether there's enough power for new loads, how your utility costs or rates are going to change, what's your impact on carbon emissions, and also what options do you have for charging in the event of a power outage. So now, Mimi, looking at the financing side of things, what funding options are your customers looking at when it comes to infrastructure upgrades?
Yeah, I mean, so without a doubt, there's a ton of funding opportunities that the U.S. government and municipalities are offering to help offset these high capital costs. But the truth is that there is still a lot of burden associated with applying for them and funding the remaining costs. And one area where I see a lot of our customers going to is energy as a service opportunities. And under these energy as a service companies, it's a financing model that allows businesses to pay for their energy services on a subscription basis and avoid some of the high installation, equipment, maintenance costs associated with transitioning your fleet. And one thing that's really exciting about Schneider is Schneider actually has two joint ventures that provide this service to customers, Alpha Structure and Green Structure, which I'm proud as an AutoGrid employee to be the engine behind, the optimization engine behind Green Structure and its virtual power plant participation.
Great. So what are the impacts of energy as a service on the grid, and how does AutoGrid address these challenges?
Yeah, so I believe that energy as a service companies are a great model to contributing to a more resilient and clean grid, because essentially under those models is that you have a single stakeholder who's hyper focused on making sure that they use energy at the right time and in the right way that benefits their customers and the grid. And it's also where AutoGrid's solution really shines. So when you have that single stakeholder managing maybe 10, 20, maybe 80 sites that have storage and EVs, you can start to pool these sites together and pool that energy flexibility of these sites together and extract 20 or 30% more value of that energy flexibility. And you're doing that because you're reducing the risk associated to any commitments that you make of that energy flexibility. And you're also being able to say, oh, if I have a diverse set of resources, I have a greater availability of those resources in whole to participate in utility programs or electricity market programs.
Great. Thank you so much, Mimi, for being here today and going over these topics and sharing AutoGrid solutions and to help meet the demands for infrastructure now and accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles. So if you have any questions for me or Mimi about AutoGrid or Schneider Electric solutions, feel free to stop by our booth after this session. Thank you.
Thank you.